Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to embark on the wonderful world of factoring trinomials. This is new. This is going to be weird, but you gotta do it. And you're going to be doing it from now until you leave high school mathematics. This is a skill that you must have. So what is a trinomial? Well, we're going to talk about trinomials. And trinomials are three-term expressions. And we're going to talk about particular trinomials that come in this form. So they're going to be expressions that have variables squared, and they're going to have a variable with a number in front and then another number. So this b and this c will both be numbers. So we're going to talk about trinomials that look like this. We're going to talk about trinomials that look like this. We're going to talk about trinomials that may look like this. That'll be new. That's putting a number in front of here. Now you're going to say, but there was no number in front of there. Yes, there was. There was an invisible 1 in front of all of them. And I changed it up to a 5 this time. So these are trinomials, and we're going to learn how to factor them. Well, before we can learn how to factor trinomials, there's something that we need to know. We need to know that when we take two binomials, and when I expand them, so I take two binomials and I expand them, I come up with 4 terms. But we notice that 2 of the terms are what we call like terms. I've got negative 3x's and I've got plus 2x's, which means that I have negative 1x in total. So when I put those two together, these like terms, negative 3x plus 2x, I get negative 1x. And what I end up with is a trinomial. Interesting. Let's try another one. Let's put an x minus 1 and an x plus 8. I just invented those numbers, came out of nowhere. So we're going to expand x squared plus 8x minus x minus 8. That's expanding. And the second step is going to be collecting like terms. So I have positive 8x. I have negative 1x. That's going to give me 7x's in total. And I get a trinomial. So moving this way is called expanding and simplifying, collecting like terms. And we've talked about this. But going this way, if I start with my trinomial, and if I go back to my two binomials, that's going to be called factoring. And it's called factoring because there's 2 factors. So you've got the first factor and the second factor. And I'm going to teach you how to do that today. And I think my pen's kind of dying, so we'll work on that. Okay. So, factor trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c. To find the factors of a trinomial in this form, look for the pair of numbers whose sum, that means adding, so whose sum is b, this value here. So that's going to be the sum. We're going to look for 2 numbers that sum to give b, and whose product means multiplication, is c. So they have to sum to give b, and they have to multiply or have a product of c. And second factor is the opposite of expanding. So a trinomial of this sorts, will factor to something like plus a number, and it could be any number at all depending on this. So I'm just going to give it a value. I'm going to call it P and Q, where P and Q are both numbers, okay? So a trinomial will factor into 2 binomials, where P and Q are both going to be numbers. But we're going to start off by practicing this idea, the idea of getting a sum of 2 numbers that are going to add together to give B, and that those same 2 numbers will multiply to give C. So find a pair of integers, and that means positive or negative, with each product and sum. So they need to have a product of 10 and a sum of 7. Now I have a certain way of doing this. I like to do a factor tree. So what I do is I start off and I say, okay, they need to be a product of 10. So what are all the products of 10? Well, 1 times 10 is 10. 2 times 10 is 5. 3 does not divide into 10 evenly, so we don't call it a factor of 10. 4 does not divide into 10 evenly. 5 does divide into 10 evenly, and it's 2 times. Do you see how these two numbers, 2 and 5, 5 and 2, are the same pair of numbers? They're just in a different order. Well, as soon as that happens, I can ignore the second pair. And these are the only factors of 10. Okay? So 1 and 10, 2 and 5 are the only factors of 10 that I can have. Now, I'm not really thinking of the sign right now, but it would be positive 1 and positive 10, positive 2 and positive 5. Now, it is possible that it could be negative 1 and negative 10, negative 2 and negative 5. They would give me a product of positive 10 too. So I need to keep that in mind just in case. But they need to add to give 7. Well, the answer here is going to be 2 and 5, because 2 plus 5 add to give 7. 1 and 10 don't add to give 7. They give 11. Now, if the 1 was negative, it'd be 9. But there's no way that they can be put together to give 7. So my two numbers must be 2 and 5. They sum to give 7, and they have a product of 10. Let's look at the next one. They need to have a product of 18, negative 18. Well, I'm not going to worry about the negative too much right now. I'm just going to look for all the factors of 18. 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, 4 does not go evenly. Now, let's say I don't know the factors of 18 very well. Then use your calculator. 18 divided by 2, you get 9. 18 divided by 3, you get 6. 18 divided by 4, you don't get a whole number, so it's not a factor. 18 divided by 5 doesn't give you a factor. 18 divided by 6 gives you 3. Do you see the 3 and the 6 and the 6 and the 3? That means that we can stop. There are not going to be any other factors. As I move up in my 6, I'm just going to repeat this pattern. So the only 3 sets of numbers that can work are 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. Now, I'm not worried about their sign just yet. Which one of these two pairs can go together to give negative 7? Negative 7. Well, 2 and 9 can go together to give negative 7. And it does so if it's negative 9 and positive 2. They're going to multiply to give negative 18, and they add together to give negative 7. So it's going to be 2 and 9. The same can't be true for 1 and 18, and the same can't be true for 3 and 6. Okay, so let's see how we're going to put this to use. Example number 2. Factor each trinomial. Then we're going to check. Now this is going to be weird at first. I'm going to do things that's going to totally freak you out. You're going to have to watch the video again, slow it down, and just start practicing it. So the first thing I'm going to start with is knowing that my answer when I factor a trinomial will be 2 binomials. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put an x at the front of both these binomials because it needs to be x times x to get x squared. Now what I need are the numbers that go here. To do that, I'm going to look for 2 numbers that multiply to give 6 and add to give 5. So they need to multiply to give 6, or the product is 6. So that's 1 and 6, 2 and 3, 3 and 2. So which one of these two pairs can be put together to give positive 5? Well, they both can. Well, they both can get 5 anyway, but only one is going to be correct. So we need to be careful here. They need to go together to give positive 5, and they need to multiply to give positive 6. So 1 plus 6 won't work. 6 minus 1 will work, but then when I multiply them, I'll get negative 6. 2 and 3, that will work if I have a positive 2 and a positive 3. Now remember, there's no difference if I write it like this. That's just the order of multiplication, and both are fine. Let's check it though. X times x is x squared, plus 2x, plus 3x, plus 6. Looking at this, we notice that we have two like terms, 2x's and 3x's. And x squared plus 5x plus 6 worked. But we had to be careful which ones of these we used, right? The same will be true in all the other examples. So the next one. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give 10. Let's just put a little bit of a thing here. So 10. 1 and 10, 2 and 5, 3 does not go evenly, 4 does not go evenly, 5 and 2. So if this factors, I'm going to use 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. 1 and 10 will sum to give me 11. That's what I'm going to use. So the answer is going to be bracket, 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 because I know the answer is going to be two binomials. X in the front of both of them, because it's got to be x times x to give x squared. And then it'll be plus 1 plus 10. Because those two can go together to sum to give me positive 11. Let's do a check. X times x is x squared, plus 10x, plus 1x, plus 10. 1 times 10 is 10. X squared plus 11x plus 10. Yep, it's the same as what I started with. So it's working. Let's do the next one. So I know that my answer is going to be a bracket and a bracket. And I know x is going to go at the front of both of them. That's what gives me this x squared. But I need two numbers that multiply to give negative 16. So it could be 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 3 does not go evenly, 4 and 4, 5 does not go evenly, 6 does not go evenly, 7 does not go evenly, 8 does. But notice that we have this repeating pattern. So I need to look between these pairs of numbers, which ones can go together to sum to give me 6. That can give me 6. And it can give me positive 6 if the 8 is positive and the 2 is negative. So negative 2, positive 8. And that's all you have to show. You're done. Let's check it. X times x is x squared plus 8x minus 2x minus 16. X squared plus 6x minus 16 is what we had up above. So this is actually what I'm giving you full marks for, and 2 marks for it. Maybe 3. I know, crazy, just one step. But it better be right. And you should be able to check it in your head. X times x is x squared. Positive 8x minus 2x is 6x's. Negative 16. Let's look at the next one. So I know the answer is going to be two binomials. I know I put an x at the beginning of both of them. Two numbers that multiply to give negative 22, but they need to sum to give negative 9. Well, 1 and 22, 2 and 11. 3 is not going to divide evenly. 4's, I don't believe, is going to divide evenly. No. 5 is not going to divide evenly. 6. No. 7. No. 8. No. 9. No. 10. No. 11. So I only have two choices here. Should be easy. I need them to go together to give negative 9. 2 and 11. The 2's got to be positive. The 11 has to be negative, though, to get that negative 9. So negative 11 and a positive 2. Let's do a check. X times x should be x squared. Negative 11x, positive 2x, negative 22. That should be negative 9x minus 22, and it's correct. So this is probably worth 3 marks. Probably 1 for each of the numbers and 1 for the signs, or 2 marks for the numbers and for the signs. Depends how we're doing that day. Okay, let's stop here so I don't do too much in one video, and then we'll come right back.